Hey guys, Jeremy here with Simple Life, and welcome to installment number 28 of Viewers Knives. These are all knives that are made by you guys, the viewers of this channel. It is really cool to see what you guys are doing and to be able to share that. Let's get started. Alright, the first knives we'll look at are sent to me from Teemo, and he is an 18-year-old knife maker from Finland. He's been making knives for almost a year and just wanted to share a couple of his recent builds. I really like the challenge that you've given yourself here. A nice little folding knife, and then just really lovely wood on this blade right here, and then also a butterfly knife or a balisong knife. That is really cool. Also, I'll put a link to Teemo's Instagram. Check that out in the description below. Keep up the great work. From Finland, let's go to Ireland right now. Samuel is 14 years old and he's been making knives for about a year as well. He just wanted to share some of the most recent projects. He says he's found huge inspiration on this channel as well as from Alex Steele, so that is really cool to hear. And then also he's got an Instagram account as well. I'll put a link to that in the description below. You can check out his stuff. Samuel, 14 years old, keep up this great work, and I'm glad you're having fun with this. Alright, next up we're going to look at some knives from Grady. Now, Grady's a 38-year-old and he's actually a full-time firefighter and a hobby knife maker, pen turner, and I actually know this because I am lucky enough to own one of his pens. He made me a pen, probably it's coming up on a year ago or so, and Grady, absolutely love it. I still use it every single day. It just writes like a dream and just absolutely really great work, and he just wants to share some of the knives here. Also, I'll put a link to his Instagram. I follow him there, and you can see his newest work with making and setting up his belt grinder. Some pretty cool stuff going on there. So Grady, these are great looking blades, and thank you for sending them in, and keep up the great work. Alright, let's head to Prince Edward Island. Adam is actually a carpenter by trade, and he's been blacksmithing and hobby knife making for about 2 years, and he says he absolutely loves it. He just wanted to share some of the recent knives that he's made, and I think these are really great classic looking knives. Adam, keep up the great work. I'm glad you're having fun with it, and these knives look really good. Alright, this next submission's pretty cool. This was sent to me by Lisa, and it's actually for her husband. This is his knife. His name's Dan, and they actually live in Calgary, which is really cool. Also, she was wondering if he could get a birthday shout out, and I apologize I missed your birthday, Dan, but happy late birthday to you. And absolutely, check your email if you'd ever like to get together and hang out, talk knives. That'd be really cool. I think this is a great looking blade. I like the size of it, and the portions look really nice. And then this carbon fiber look on your Kydex sheath there, very nicely done. Dan, keep up the great work, and Lisa, thank you for sending this in. Alright, from Calgary, let's head to Carlsbad, New Mexico. Justin is a 21-year-old and he has a lot of experience with fabricating and welding and wanted to get into knife making. But he also kind of wondered, you know what, what's the easiest, quickest way to get into it? So what he came up with was modify an existing knife. So this here was an old hickory and it was a double-edged knife. What he'd done was he dulled the one side of it, he shortened it down, reprofiled the bevels on it, added jimping, a Spanish notch, and he even added his own zebra wood scales. I think that is a really cool approach. You know, a lot of people don't think that way, but if you don't have all the materials to make a knife completely from scratch, a lot of the skills required to modify a knife are the exact same as what you would need to make a knife. So excellent approach here. Justin, I think this is really cool. Thank you for sharing this with us. These next 3 knives were sent to me from Travis, and he just kind of wanted to share his most recent work. He says he's learned a lot from this channel and is actually inspired to start his own, so I'll leave a link to his channel, his YouTube channel, in the description below. Be sure to go check it out. Travis, these are great looking blades. Thank you for sharing these. Rehto sends in pictures of this knife, and this is actually the 7th knife he's made. He made this as a wedding present, and this is just a great looking blade. The steel he used is 1095, and it's actually got a chisel grind. The one side is a hollow grind, and it's actually sharpened without a secondary bevel. That is really very difficult to achieve. A lot of extra patience and skill goes into that. I think this turned out just fantastic. He's differentially hardened it, and the handle material that he used Zebrano handle with a Purple Heart bolster. This looks absolutely fantastic. Very nicely done. I'll put a link to his Instagram in the description below. Be sure to check it out. He also has a YouTube channel. Right now he's just got one video on how he made free ride skis. It's actually a really cool little video. You should definitely check it out. Rehto, thanks for sending this in. It looks absolutely fantastic. Next, we're going to go to Italy, and Elvis shares some progress shots of a really interesting project. So the steel that he used for this was from an old Fiat, and it was actually his grandfather had owned it. And then the wood that he used was from an old pear tree that was planted on the day his grandfather was born, and that's really cool. So he wanted to make this project just to kind of commemorate that and combine these memories and these little pieces of history into a knife, and I think that's a really great story. Elvis, this looks fantastic. I thank you so much for sharing it and the progress of this project. Also, I'll put a link to his Instagram in the description below. Be sure to go check it out. Michael is a 65-year-old knife maker from Fort Myers, Florida. This is the 3rd knife that he's made, and this is actually the very first time he's ever tried a jamon, and you can see it turned out really nicely there. The steel he used is 1095, and he said he had to refinish this knife about 4 different times because he just never liked it. So on the 4th time, he finally got something he was happy with and left it alone. His other hobbies are bamboo fly rod making, and so that's kind of a really interesting crossover, and I'm sure a lot of those skills and the finesse required to do that hobby cross very nicely into knife making. So Michael, thank you for sharing these with us. Chris is just new to knife making and wanted to share pictures of a recent knife that he's made. I think this looks absolutely fantastic. He also made himself a 2x72 grinder, which is really cool. I'm glad you're enjoying this, Chris, getting right into it, and thank you for sending your pictures in. Ben is a 15-year-old knife maker from the UK and just want to share pictures of his recent project. This is a friction folder that he made after watching me build a friction folder on this channel, and originally he had wanted micarta for the scales, but as he was peening over the pins, it actually broke, so he ended up using 01 tool steel. He says here it took even longer, but I also think it looks really, really cool. Very nicely done, Ben. Keep up the great work, and thank you for sharing this with us. Next, we're going to go to Norway, and Ask is a 12-year-old knife maker. This is actually the 6th knife that he's made, and he made it as a gift for a friend. The steel was a saw blade steel, and he used birch for the scales. Very, very nicely done, Ask. To think that you're 12 years old making knives and making them for your friends, that is very, very cool to see. Keep up the great work. Jess wanted to share a couple pictures of some recent neck knives he's made. Now, this first one here, the scales that he used, the wood is red gum, and he did a flat grind with a secondary bevel. And for this second knife here, he actually used plumb handles and a blended full flat grind, which is the first time he's ever tried that. I think it turned out really nicely. Also, this is the very first time he's ever tried Kydex, and again, looks like it's working great. So, Jess, thank you so much for sharing this, and keep up the great work. Also, I'll put a link to his Instagram in the description below. Next up, we've got this knife from Andy, and he's a 41-year-old from Scotland, but he's currently living in the Netherlands. He's been making knives for about 6 months, and with this knife here, he kind of just made it with some materials he had laying around. Some of that wood, he actually just found it laying in the street, and he also put a forced patina on this blade with mustard, and I think that turned out really nice. He did this whole thing on a little 4-inch belt sander / disc sander combo, and you know what, Andy, this looks absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your wonderful email, and keep up the great work. Let's head from Amsterdam to Germany. Johannes is a 22-year-old knife maker, and he's doing an apprenticeship as a metal worker, specializing in metal design. That sounds really, really interesting. This knife here that he's sharing with us is a 260-layer Damascus knife. I'm not sure if he made that Damascus himself or not, but either way, it's a really nice looking pattern in there, and he put a walnut handle on this blade as well. Very nicely done, Johannes. Thank you so much for sending this in. So we've got some pretty cool progress shots with this next knife. This is sent to me from Will, and he's from Beardstown, Illinois. He's 44 years old, and this is the very first knife he's ever made. He wanted to start with a very simple project and forged this one out of 5160. Originally, he designed to have wooden scales and a lanyard hole, but kind of as he got going, he opted for the paracord with no hole. Either way, this turned out absolutely fantastic. Really interesting to see the progress shots, the bar starting to take shape and turn into this very usable blade. Will, very nicely done. Keep up the great work. Jared shares pictures of this knife. This is the very first knife he's ever made, and he made this thing entirely with hand tools in his apartment in Queens, New York. That is just so cool. I can just picture him sitting there, you know, with his hacksaws and his files, doing all the elbow grease, working so hard, and at the end of it, you've got a very nice, usable blade. I think this looks really, really well. Nicely done. He's also working on a mini cleaver after seeing the one that I made on this channel, so that's very cool. Jared, thank you so much for your email, and keep up the great work. Alright guys, we're going to wrap up this edition of Viewers Knives by taking a look at this knife here. This is from Luke. Now Luke lives outside of St. Louis, Missouri. He's 46 years old. He's been making knives for about 2 years. This knife here he did with the stock removal method, and that is 416 layers of Damascus with the desert ironwood scales. This is just a gorgeous looking blade, absolutely fantastic. This is one that Luke had made for a customer. He also says here that he makes all of his fixtures, his jigs, his own 2x72 grinder, and he just finished up a forging press as well. That is really, really cool to hear. Excellent work, Luke. Thank you so much for a wonderful email. I really do appreciate it. Also, I'll put a link to his Facebook page in the description below. Be sure to go check that out. Well, thanks so much to all of you who have sent pictures in for Viewers Knives. It's a real honor for me to be able to share these with other people and to see what you guys are doing and just be inspired by you guys. It is so cool. If you'd like to have your knife featured on this channel, just email me, jeremy@homesteadknives.com, and we will get it featured. Be sure to leave your comments and appreciation for the fine work in the comment section below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Cheers.